Hi and welcome to video 4. Now we're going to continue now with some of the basic concepts of programming. We've managed to print out a hello world. That's anytime you learn any programming language, this is the first thing you'll do. We've managed to do that within Unity 3D. What we're going to do now is work on variables, which is one of the basic concepts of programming. A variable could be something like the health of the player, and when the player's health gets to 0, the game ends, or the number of lives that the player has. They're all pretty simple. Inside Unity, we can declare variables inside of a class. Now this is very object orientated when it comes to programming. The variables that you define inside this class are only visible to this class. Even though this is a public class, other objects in your scene wouldn't really be able to access them unless you specifically allow them to. That means that you can have an X variable inside this class, and you can have an X variable inside another class, and an X variable inside another class, and they won't interfere with each other, which is basically the concept of object-oriented programming. So let's get ourselves started. We're going to define some variables. Now in C#, the way you define a variable is you define first of all its type. Now you might wonder what the type is. And the type is basically what data this variable will hold. There is a var keyword that you can say, var being define just a variable. Unfortunately, you need to then define something, so we may as well define the type anyway. Some of the common types are int. Int is an integer, a number that doesn't have any decimal point and any numbers after the decimal point. We'll start by defining an int, and we're going to call this int my int. Now, that is it. That is me defined a variable. The variable is called myInt, and it is of type int. Just like when we name the classes, you can't call it my space int. You'll see the line comes up showing that there's a problem. You can't call it int as well. If you call it int, it still thinks that it is that's a variable type, and it will come up with an error there as well. So any of the reserved words with C#, so you couldn't, for example, call it int print, because it might get confused with another function. So it's important that you think of good names, and they should be descriptive names. I'm just going to call mine myInt because that's a good name for it, because it's my integer. And then you finish the line with a semicolon. So does this work? Well, let's find out. So we're going to take this print, and instead of printing a string of letters that we define within the parameters, we're just going to say print my int. Now you'll see that the context, the IntelliSense comes up, and it helps you. If you just hit Tab, once you've got the right one, it'll be fine. It'll fill it out for you. If you run this, so we're going to click Save, Control S, and go back to Unity. We'll clear the console so we can see what's happening. I might make this console a bit bigger, and we'll hit play, and you should see that the value 0 is printed out to the console. I'm going to hit play again so that we're out of the play mode, and go back to the code. Let's have a little look at this. So we've defined an integer, but we've not actually set a value to this integer. So we can do that with the equals. So we can just say my int is equal to something, and we're just going to say my int is equal to 34 randomly. If we save this, when we get down to here, inside the start function, this will run once. It will print whatever my int, the value of my int. So once again, I've saved this, I've hit play again, and you'll see now that the value that it puts out is 34, because that's what my int is. Now the really cool thing about Unity, I'm going to show you this now. It's probably a bit early for it, but I'll show you anyway. The declarator public, so if you declare it as public, just like we've got class, if we've declared this integer as public, and I save my code, and I go into Unity, you'll see over in the Hello World script that we see, so this is attached to my camera, you can actually see that my int is listed here and the value that it holds is listed here. Now if I change this inside here and then I run the code, you'll see that the output you get now is the same as we put here. Now just a little word of warning, if you change, because I've changed it here and it's public, if I change it over here to 987, this will have no effect whatsoever because this overwrites it. So right here we've run it again and we still get 45. So making it public means that this piece of code, this public inside the inspector, this will overwrite any of the code that you have written within here. So it's probably best that we take this out for now, to be honest. I'll save that again. So my int is now 987, and I'm going to go back to here, run the code. You'll see that this has disappeared, and we hit play, and you'll see that the value is correct as expected within the code. Just because we have a little time in this video, we're going to define another type of variable. Now the other type is float. Now the most common type is float, and that's a floating point number. I'm going to call this one my float. You can do this too, and this could be a number similar to this. Now you see that I've put a small letter f after this. This is a common thing in C#. You'd think that by having a decimal place and all these numbers after it, that the computer would be able to realise that this is a decimal, this is actually a floating point number. But there's other numbers that have decimals as well, so it's good practice within Unity to put this small letter f afterwards. This is not included in the code, it'll just be this value. But this will just define that it is in fact a floating point number and not a double or any other type of number that might have a decimal place in it. So this is how we define a floating point number, so a decimal place number, and that's its type right there. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it underneath, and I'm going to print my float out as well. I may as well do, just before we test this, I'm going to do the last one of the really common ones, ints, floats and strings. A string is a string of letters like we did with the hello world, and I'm going to call this one my string, and in order to set a value into my string I'm going to have to put it inside the quote marks again. So I'm going to do that hello world thing again, and then don't forget my semicolon. So copy this, paste it down here, and my string. Okay, so if you look at this piece of code, we've defined three different variables. My int, which is of type int, and we've set a value to it. We've got another variable called my float, which is of type float, and we've defined a value for it. Now with floats, don't forget to put the little small f after the number. And string, my string, so it's type string, it's called my string, and I've put some values, a value to this string. Don't forget semicolons. If your code doesn't work, it's probably you've forgotten one of those. And then I've just used print my int, print my float, and print my string. So if I save this code, jump to Unity, clear my console just so we don't get confused, and hit play, you'll see the three values should come up inside the console. So that's the basics of variables. We're going to do variable mathematics in a few minutes in the next video.